seconds?
30 seconds. And you gotta be careful when you do remove them because they are pretty small. It's the size of the set screw. And there's two of them.
Those set screws will be installed with Loctite, so initially you're going to put a little bit of torque in them to break them. But after that, you pull the set screws out. You don't actually have to remove them completely. You can back them off, and if you back them off far enough, you can turn the cylinder without taking the set screw out. I'd advise getting better at that because once the set screw comes out, getting it back up through that hole and getting it started is difficult.
Practice, for sure.
Okay.
So we removed both, or I already pre-removed the set screws from there. So to disengage the cylinders from the lock here, we tend to use these are like body tools for cars, but anything that's a small, thin, probably metal piece would probably be the best. But sometimes you can do them with your thumbs, but we found easier that if you just put it in between the ring and the cylinder and turn, you get it enough that it's spin, and you can get it to a point that you can finish it off with your hand, but
you can do this with a flat tip screwdriver as well. You just tend to mar the cylinder itself. So on the back of that cylinder is a tab that engages a mechanism. If that tab becomes engaged with the mechanism within, it'll make it really difficult to turn off that cylinder.
and do the same thing on the other side.
So this would be the process if, for instance, if we were to, you were to specify and we shipped you a shutter where the cylinders were handed wrong, like you specified the thumb turn on the inside or the lock on the outside, this would be the process for flipping the cylinders to be on the opposite sides. So you wouldn't need like an entirely new bottom bar, you can flip these in the field. Also, if you have to, you ask for the wrong type of core, and we send you replacement cores, this is the same process.
So next there's rivets that hold end plugs on both their 316. You can take a 3/6 rivet, drill them out. Did already, pretty sure you did it.
This is the end plug that we're looking at, and the rivet is installed right here on the end. The end plugs are held in two ways, both this rivet and this barrel nut, this through barrel nut. So first we're going to drill out these rivets.
So I drill them out, pull them out. Then each end of the end plug also has screw and barrel on each side, just a Phillips. On most occasions, you'll have to put probably a Phillips screwdriver behind to keep them from both spinning. These are already loose. No problem. So it's just a barrel and a screw to each side.
So next step is to pull, to open up, pry open the upper extrusion so we can pull the bottom extrusion out.
This is be a little bit tricky and it'll take some obviously practice, and the more you do it, the better you get.
Don't do it, it's gonna need more practice than I did because you did this morning.
The taking the hole and just pry it out a little bit, enough that you can see it. Put it on in it. And sometimes you can just gauge it from here, but looks like you have to do the same thing on the other side. Once you break one side, the rest should, come on, you wanna do it there?
So we have a mechanism here and the lock bars that pass off these arms. On each side of the mechanism, we have a 1/4-20 screw with a nylock bolt. We're gonna take the bolts off of each side.
Just a 7/16.
Gotcha. So this would be the process that you would take if you wanted to replace the mechanism itself in a condition where you didn't want to replace the entire bottom bar. So if you had a bottom bar that's 10 foot, 15 foot, that's prohibitively expensive to ship, and you've got a more urgent timeline, getting to this mechanism, replacing the mechanism might make a lot more sense than getting an entirely new bottom bar. In addition,
Would that because it's failed or something wrong with it?
something's wrong with it. If, for instance, you could have gotten debris or something through the mechanism, through the cylinder, and we've had a buildup of debris inside the base slat. We've had those instances. They aren't perfect. You do get thumb turns that fail. Oftentimes, we have conditions where they're effectively abused, where people won't push the door fully closed, and then they try to actuate the lock, and these bars bottom out against the back of the rail, and instead of pushing the door down fully, they just keep pushing on the lock, and you will eventually over time bend these arms. And once the arms are bent, there's really no way to get to them without taking the entire system apart and replacing the mechanism.
And you cannot take a standard Adams drive lock and modify it. You have to have, that is a modified from the factory Adams drive.
At this point, it's proprietary, but you're right. It started off a long time ago as basically a Adams Wright derivative 3-point lock. At this point, it's obviously only a 2-point, and the portion that would normally be a hook lock has been taken off. But no, on these products, we don't use the standard, what you're probably thinking of is the Adams Wright with the key and the handle for engagement. We don't on the smaller products. On the jack shaft operated larger products, it is an option if we can specify. The only issue there is that the installer has to be really good about setting their lock sensors on their operators. So if anybody's familiar with setting lock sensors on a jack shaft operator, they're not always easy to set.
My point is that in an emergency, I can't take an Adams Wright and swap parts over to make this work.
No, but the likelihood is that you're having problems with the arms. And if you're in an emergency and you're just looking to get through, take the entire system apart, bend the arms to where they need to be, make sure that your bars are passing into the slots in your guides. There's a pretty good chance that you can, rework the mechanism a little bit, add grease, clean it up, straighten your bars out, make sure that your mortises are correct. There's a really good chance that the issue is derived from the mortises.
And that they're free of debris.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that gets you in trouble.
Especially in, exterior, especially in the north. We didn't mention it yesterday during install, but I did drop a fastener down the mounting track yesterday, and that's a problem, especially on brand new installs, is if you have screws that fall into this track, this is the same place the locks throw. So make sure that you pull all the screws that might have fallen into this guide at the bottom, because they'll prevent your lock bars from throwing into that space.
So when you get to this point, you just slide your, you make it into one side enough that you can get this bar out. Here, vice versa, on the other side. Now, when you remove this, you gotta, remember that you gotta put something on your either to hold it or some kind of
Wedge.
soft wedge in here, because the base line will, the shutter will go up, because now you're removing most of the weight of the base line. And if it's spring, obviously spring loaded, it's gonna go up, so. You're gonna like it.
Okay. You got it?
At this point, I need to move the bar. And there is a left and a right bar, one shorter than the other, so you keep your orientation when you're reassembling.
And those would be much longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really different.
Right. Pretty wide on a white shutter.
It started off proprietary, I believe at this point that it's been knocked off a few times. But, yeah, so it's just two rivets that are installed. They have matching holes in the mechanism. Drill your rivets out, and you can replace your mechanism, or now that you have it free, you can rework the mechanism. You can test your mechanism for operation by pushing this tab that the cylinder would engage and just flipping the mechanism up. Try to, when you do this, just be careful you don't mar these threads, they're fine. And you can check operation here before you put the door back together.
Right, you sell a tap and die kit for those cylinders and the mechanism, and it is a lifesaver, especially for this mechanism.
Yeah, so one thing that you'll find with these really fine threads is instead of trying to tighten right away, put your cylinder in and turn the wrong direction until you feel the thread snap, basically where it climbs the thread into the point where you get the engagement. You'll feel the mechanism just move a little bit and then try to thread the tighten, because at that point you found the lead for the thread. Right. Yeah, these are, once you're good at this, it's not a problem, but if you aren't paying attention, they're easy to cross thread.
And then you're screwed.
Well, then you're climbing for a new mechanism.
Yep.
Or baseline.
You're gonna deal with a lot of those, major manufacturing sells that tap and die set.
Do you want to show that we can slide this off?
Yeah. Obviously, to assemble it back, you just reverse what we did, right now, and we will go through that. While we're at it right here, we'll show you, if you had to remove the space set completely, you have to go through the same operation, because you have to remove these bars from the jambs. This is probably the most difficult one to remove if you have to remove. We're gonna show you our other ones later that are way easier to remove. But here, what we'll do is you have to pull the end plugs out of this U-shaped extrusion. So you can open them up with your hand.
Show the switch. Switch. So there's just enough clearance in our coupling that you can rotate the extrusion out of the way and then slide it off. You should put a piece of tape over the front of the rail because it is tight and you can scratch the face of the rail. But from here, you can slide the base slide off, do what you need to do, and then slide the new, or maybe not new bottom bar, but if you need to use the new extrusion, slide the new extrusion back in, and then reassemble. Do we want to loop the shutter and show how you can take this off separate?
Slats.
Just split the base. Do you want to split the curtain here?
Good.
I don't trust this lock. Bear with me 1 second. So what we're gonna show you is that what you can do is you can loop the curtain, if you wanted to split this part of the door from the rest of the curtain and you didn't want to take the entire door down, what you can do is you can loop the curtain by pushing up, and again, my lock isn't very good right now. I'll find a screwdriver, but you can loop the curtain down, so you create a slat curtain here. You can take end locks out of your slats, and you can slide a slat out. Now, from that split where you've slid the slat out to the base slat, now that portion of the door is separate, and that portion of the door can now be pulled out, and you can do kind of service and then lace the curtain back together. That is the same process we'll show you for how to replace a single slat within the curtain without having to take the entire door apart. What do you want to do first? Should have gotten the I just didn't have the foresight to put it into the door before we did this.
So here we can remove a retainer, we can slide that out, and we're able to disengage the bottom portion of the curtain from the top portion. If you have to replace slats.
Now, yesterday y'all were talking about you needed to protect slats.
That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So,
It
that's
goes behind them.
coming.
And it jumps ahead.
Let's pull it down and put the butcher paper and do it right. This way, when the slats slip, you're not gonna scratch the adjacent slats.
Okay.
And 808 is more forgiving because at the bottom of that curtain, they're the same slat, but it's more of a concern on concrete, which is a fully nested product.
Right.
We have a idler opposite spring, so it's fairly easy for us because of how the idler is shaped to just pin off the barrel. If you had a double spring, this would be harder. You'd have to grip the barrel itself. That can be done if you have the room with the pipe wrench or an open end or a channel lock. So take the finger pull out, say we're gonna replace it. And lock screws. Now, as you do this, you have to be careful because as soon as I decouple this door, the rest of the curtain's gonna wanna fall down the rail. So you can either hold the curtain like we're doing. If this door was bigger, you can put something in the rail to block the bottom part of the doors from falling. So while I was doing this and I had ample side room, I would start with my replacement slot on the other side and lace it in from that side, so that it's gonna hold these slats the right distance for me to slide the replacement slot in. So hypothetically say that I pull this completely off and I'm not replacing it, so I get back here. And now we just replace it.
The reason you would replace one of these if it was damaged or something, or
If you had a scratch or, some typically scratches.
that customer will want it replaced for just a scratch?
I mean, if it's the painted product, we have ample, we have touch-up paint in every color. But if it's the black anodized or the anodized product, they're harder to touch up, and yeah, we've had to replace slats for less.
Especially if it's been gouged.
Right.
From an attack. Or been run into, or